So next up is inputs. Now inputs are divs that let you input text or numbers or what have you into your website. So let's start by getting rid of everything from last episode, and we'll just have an empty div. Now inside that div we'll do input. If we save that and go to our web page, you can see that there's a box there now. To make this a bit more visible, I'm just going to quickly add a style prop to this div, and I'm going to say padding 25 pixels. Now all that will do is just add a bit of a buffer between the parent div and the input, just so we can see the input a bit better on the screen. So this input, if you click on it, you can start typing stuff into it. I'm sure you've seen inputs many times on web pages. Username, password, send message, update your Facebook status, and what have you. Now the input can have different types. You can have a text input or a number input. If we wanted to make it numbers only, we could say the type is equal to number. So here we've said that the type prop of the input component is number. So if we save this, we should now only be able to type numbers. If you try to type in ABC, nothing will happen, nothing changes. Only numbers are allowed to be put into this, and it has a fancy little up and down option. The other type would be text, which will let you type text, but also numbers, because numbers can count as text. This would result in a string of hello 2323. So there's other props that we can add to this input. For example, you could have a placeholder, and that would take a string. A placeholder is what displays in that input before you've typed anything. So if we save this, when we go into our web page, we should see I'm a placeholder within the text box. It's slightly grayed out, and it could be used as like an example of what the text box is meant to be used for, and when you start typing it will disappear. So you'd most likely see this as an example phone number. Which would let people know you meant to type a number here. Another prop to add would be disabled. Now disabled is a prop that accepts true or false. If it's true and it is disabled, you won't be able to use that input. If it's false, you will be able to. So if we say disabled is true, if we try and click on it and type stuff, nothing happens. If we change this back to false, we should be able to type in it again. Instead of using the input from HTML, which is quite ugly, let's try and import one from MaterialUI. And simply replace that. Save that, and then let's see what that looks like. It's just a bit fancier. Another prop that we can use with input would be onChange. Now onChange is a function that will run every single time you enter something into that input, anytime anything changes. And that will look like your usual function. So this will be run anytime something changes in the input, and E here is the argument that's given, and it is equal to that input itself. So what we can do is console log the value. So we're saying e.target.value to get to the actual value within that input, the text value. So this should output the text that we type into it, into the console. So let's try and test that out. If we open up our console on the right, click this tab, then anything you type in is showing us what it's got. Another input type that we can use would be called Checkbox, and that's again from MaterialUI. If we save that and have a look what it looks like. Now you could make this yourself using HTML, but it'd be quite difficult, and as always, why reinvent the wheel when it exists there with MaterialUI? So the checkbox will have similar props to the input. Except this time it has a checked option. So if we console log what that checked is, the second argument, it should toggle true, false, true, false, true, false. True when it's on, false when it's off. If you hover over on change, it will tell you what the expected arguments are. So we've got the event, which is the input itself, the toggle box, and then the value, true or false, is the second argument. There's a lot of cool inputs that you can use with MaterialUI. These are not actually ingrained HTML inputs, but MaterialUI have made them for us to use. Again, you could make them yourself, but it's a lot of work for very little gain. So if we look at what the slider does, let's try and add some props to this. And we'll say max is 100 and min is 0. And then if we do on change, just check what those values are. We've got event and then the values, so we'll say e and value, and then we'll console log the value. And then if we go and fiddle with that slider, we should see the value change as we slide. So there's at 100, as you go down, it goes down to 0. The last one that we'll look at is called a switch. Again, that's from MaterialUI, so it will need to be imported. That is kind of like a checkbox. It's a bit prettier, goes left to right. Let's have a look at the on change, see what we can do with it. On change, the same as the checkbox, has got an event and the value. Let's console log that. Save that and then go back to our page, and we'll just see true, false, true, false, true, false as you click it. Now in the next episode, we'll talk about how to use these with state. And state is what's used to hold information in the website. So I'll see you there.